88.5 FM.
The Neutral Zone, with me, Jason Schwartz, would like to thank Maui Arts and Music Association, Treemakers Foundation of Maui, for their support. Since 1991, with hundreds of television shows and their MauiArtsAndMusic.com website, they have championed self-sustainability on Maui. The Neutral Zone is heard live Mondays at 11 a.m. and replayed Saturday at 7 a.m. on KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. Good morning, everyone. It's 11 o'clock on Monday, September 30th. We're at the Neutral Zone. We have a terrific guest today.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around for a long, long year. So many men sold away. And I was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and faith. Made damn sure that Pilate washed his hands and sealed his face. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guessed my name. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Jason Schwartz. I am the host here at the Neutral Zone, MauiNeutralZone.com, KAKU 88.5 FM on your dial. Also, you can find it on Facebook Live. We're on Facebook Live right now. And afterward, at MauiNeutralZone.com, you can find this show with my wonderful guests, or the last 60 shows, because we keep them all up there, and they're on YouTube, so you can't miss us. We have a guest today that I'm very excited about. I want to say I've waited 25 years, but I think it's more, to have LucienneDeNaie on a show with me. Lucienne, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It can't be 25 years.
Well, you know, I know you since...
show, full disclosure, several times.
With me?
Yeah.
When was that?
Back in the old days when I was running for office.
Oh, way back. Oh, see, I don't even remember. Look at that.
2006, 2008.
Get a little bit closer if you can. Just so
all right. Is that better?
That's good.
All right.
That's good. Okay. Lucienne, among other things, if people know Akaku Maui Community Media Television, they would know Lucienne because every 2 weeks she has a show on Tuesday evening.
Tuesday evenings, 7 to 8 p.m.
called CROSSROADS.
That's right. And
how would you describe your show? What would be your statement?
Well, it's show? A little bit of everything. I call it community conversations, but the topic could be music, art, authors, politics, important nonprofit events, helping our keiki, helping our elders, helping our homeless, policy discussions. The most common thing that comes up for me is someone will talk about someone on Maui, and I'll go, oh, yeah, I had them on my show. After I'm in my 8th year. I'm finishing up my 8th year.
Fabulous.
Every 2 weeks. So I've interviewed a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Yeah. And then occasionally we do special shows where we will focus on a topic. We've done, during the political season, we've done candidate forums with just like one office, all the candidates for one office, myself and a co-host, various co-hosts, and just get a little bit of, in-depth time on that particular seat. And those have been just wonderful experiences, both for the candidates and for the crew and for myself and whoever my fellow interviewer is. So it's kind of whatever we want to make it. My crew gives me suggestions about things to do. The public gives me suggestions. And Akaku staff gives me suggestions. And then I have ideas. So it's a smorgasbord.
And afterwards, they can find your shows. Are easy to find?
Oh, yeah. They're all posted on Vimeo at the Akaku website,
okay.
Akaku.org. And we're on channel 55. So the shows play after they're filmed live. Every other Tuesday, there's a live show. And then it plays several times during the week. And it plays again as a taped show the next Tuesday, 7 to 8 p.m., and then a couple more times, and then I do a new show. So people run into it. If you're a channel surfer and you look at Akaku, my shows are on fairly frequently. They're on 3 or 4 times a week.
Right. Well, and I've been, sound like I have the same routine of the places shows are on because I have my show here. And it's interesting because you cover such a myriad of things, but what you bring to every show is you. And I want you to know, I know Lucienne. She's only like 33 now, so I know her since she was a younger girl. For at least it's about 30 years, I know.
It is 30 years, yeah.
And I have always said, just always, and I still feel it, that you have so much to offer the county of Maui and the state of Hawaii just by who and what you are and your experience and your outlook and your approach. You could be co-hostess for my show because ours is the neutral zone. It's anything but neutral. And you are eloquent and knowledgeable. Like today, for example. Where are you going after the show?
I'll be going down to the county building and the water committee, the WAI committee, WAI committee, is going to be hearing comments about our water use and development plan. So I've been tracking this plan, since like 2003. So what's that, like almost 18 years, 17 years?
Yeah.
And I've read many different drafts of it. And I read the newest draft, which is over 1,000 pages, and I'm submitting comments on behalf of the Sierra Club. So today I'll be at 1:30 on Akaku testifying at the county council.
Any important things that our audience can take some snapshots now?
Oh, yeah. In terms of this plan, it's one of those things where most of us are too busy to think about these huge concept plans for our next 25 years. But then we wake up one day and go, well, when did we decide to do that? So I have some digestible versions. I think in a nutshell, the comments I wrote were, let's look at water as one water. In other words, we have different departments now managing wastewater. We have another one for stormwater. We have another one for potable water. In Honolulu, they're all managed together, and because of that, they're really planning ways to better and more efficiently use the potable water we have is a limited amount. And so we don't want to use it to create, for instance, Gardens of Eden in deserts, like at the Wailea resorts.
Unless they can provide their own water.
Well, they would be happy to use reclaimed water.
What?
We don't have a strategy to provide it to them.
Last week I had a guest. You may want him on. His name is Ted Bowman from Tsunami Products, and they take water from air, and they've been very successful in homes and all the way up to 5,000 gallons a day.
That'd be very interesting. Yeah, of course, and if people could make their own water, that would be a lot less pressure and expense. The systems to, exploit water resources and treat water and everything.
And then we don't have to take it and ship it anywhere. You can create it where you use it.
Yeah.
If we have power and we have water, we can then leave all our open space open and we can build on things we said we couldn't build on.
Well, see, that's a conversation that isn't even
on the radar.
In our radar.
That's why I had them on.
And this water use plan, buried in the fine print, is, if we could work with our residential customers and reduce the demand by 8%, which Honolulu has done for years. It's in their water plan that it's our goal to reduce by 8%, and they do, and then they get more population, and they reduce by 8% because they need the same amount of water for a growing population.
Do they have water-saving devices and things in the home to help that kind of stuff?
They do. They have water-saving devices. They have incentive programs. So we have that buried in our plan, but then when you read all the things that we're planning on doing, that is like barely kind of mentioned. It's like, oh yeah, and then maybe we could do some water conservation. Whereas if you actually, read the research, that could create 9 million gallons of water a day. That's a huge. That's what the whole upcountry system uses, for instance. So by having a policy and a action plan to get towards that policy, which is being done, we hate Honolulu, but it's being done in Honolulu, and they've done it for years.
Yeah, well.
So why not us?
So now,
no Kauai.
No, you just mentioning it here.
There's one take home.
I hope that if people hear this and please mention, do we have people that we know that could be influencers of this?
Well, I've been reaching out to council members, and I'm happy to meet individually with any of them. I probably will at some point try to do this. But this idea of coordinating our efforts to manage water into one water, so that we see the reclaimed water as a resource to replace the potable water that we need for drinking. I mean, we give lip service to this in all of our plans. We don't have a strategy, a budget, a timeline. We've done plans that say how it could be done, but there's not the commitment that in the next 5 years we're going to do this part. In the next 5 years we're going to be completed with this part. We really need to be operating on that level, because that's how things get done. They don't get done by the same concepts being repeated for 30 years. I just read the 1990 plan. It has so many of these same things in it. We never did them. We had a water plan in 1990 and had all the same good ideas, but there wasn't a plan to actually implement those good ideas.
I used to say when you were running, and then way back when I was running, you can go left or you can go right. They've gone left, and they keep going left. Do we have any influencers that are in the council now and in the bodies that can make these changes happen?
Well,
yeah, I think so.
My particular council member, Shane Sinensi, who represents the Hana district, where I live in the Hana district out in Huelo.
Yeah.
He is very, very responsive to anything that has to do with good water management. He's Hawaiian. This is part of Hawaiian value system. Hawaiians are raised, by their kupuna to think of water as really a shared and precious resource. It's built in their value structure. So he is very tuned in. He's turned to me a number of times to, ask what I know about what's going on with this and what I know what's going on with that. So I'm very appreciative
That's great.
of having that communication outlet. And there's other people on the council. Chair King is really a person who likes action plans. And, being from a business background, which is my background too, I guess when you're from a business background, you kind of expect to have a beginning and a middle and end and actually do things, rather than have endless reports and studies and by kind of things. It's like, so I think Chair King is pretty motivated too during her, term here on the council to see things go from theory to action.
Yeah, I'm loving it. We had both of those guys on. Shane was here maybe a month ago. Even though we're talking about water in a holistic way, we're still separate. One of the things we're talking about is that injection well thing. Here we are. When is the Supreme Court case for that coming up?
If the county council actually does what the county if the county corporation council does what the county council has voted on and said that they want the county to do, which is withdraw the case, they need to do it this month.
Right.
Otherwise, it's scheduled for the, 6th of November.
Coming right up.
Yeah.
And so this issue of the mayor versus the council and who has the power, where does all that coming from?
Well, it's hard to know exactly what's motivating the mayor. I like Mayor Victorino. He's a nice guy. I think he's sincere about a lot of things. But I just think that the information that he has been given about this is a very limited view of what will happen, what could happen, and what needs to happen. He says he's committed to fixing the problem and investing in reuse, and that's wonderful, but we have heard this from 2 previous mayors, and it doesn't always work out that way. In fact, I'm hoping someone just tracks all the money that's been appropriated for upgrades to sewage treatment plants to allow more reuse and see, how we're doing on that. Because it may be that our plans weren't that well thought out and money was appropriated, but either it couldn't be put to use because, the thing that was planned couldn't be built or, whatever. It'd just be nice to have the simple version of that story because it gets buried in the budget process and most of us don't have time to track that. So I'm hoping that there'll be some person who just loves to do research that just dedicates themselves to finding out what's happened for the last 10 years. That we've been hearing that.
So if you're out there and you're dedicated to doing this kind of research, we want to know.
Yeah, it's true.
But I would think, I also like Mike Victorino. I wonder what this is about. If you were being environmentally responsible and you act locally, but we have to think about all of us together. I don't really understand this isolated decisions. I can't believe it.
At the Supreme Court for this case.
It's unbelievable.
I have actually read the friend of the court briefs that were submitted by other towns, cities, states, Indian tribes. I mean, some of them are heartbreaking. Please, do not support the county of Maui's petition. Our little town is suffering from polluted water from a mine. The only way we have to control it is if the law of the land is that the underground waters can be said to have a connection to the Clean Water Act. This is what we've been counting on. This is what we've been working with the EPA on. Don't pull the rug out from under our feet. I don't think the mayor knows these things.
I don't. No, well, now we give him a chance. Maybe we'll send him this clip. But, honestly, he has pretty healthy staff there that could and probably can read so many opinions that have been out.
I just, after hearing from Bruce Anderson in the Department of Health, where basically he was begging the consul, he said, he couldn't come out and say, don't send this to the Supreme Court because, that was kind of above his pay grade. He wasn't authorized by the governor to say that, although I've heard privately that the governor is very concerned of the nationwide precedent that sending this to the Supreme Court could make. But what Bruce Anderson from the Health Department said is every county should be recycling as much of its treated wastewater as possible. Let's just find the proper permit that works, get the process going, and work together on this. Now, what part of this the mayor didn't hear, I don't know. So
this is where you get to a point where you say, okay, Mike Victorino's a sensible guy, has got great staff. Is this where I don't use the word graft, because that's not. Well, whose benefit? Who benefits by this being this way? That our budget somehow is going to be impacted?
He has been told that we will face horrendous fines. Both the Department of Health has said we're not interested in fines. We're interested in working with you on a solution. The mayor received a letter that I was CC'd on from the former member of the Honolulu City Council, Stephen Holmes, who worked on wastewater issues in the 80s and 90s, who said, oh, you think you have problems? We had huge problems. We didn't get fined at all. What we did is have to come up with workable solutions and a timeline. That is what the Department of Health and EPA wants.
Well, with
now,
that
yes,
kind of
on the record, you can do huge fines, but in reality, what they want is compliance. So let's work together for compliance.
I would think that would be understood, especially now with all the conversation. So again, am I asking too specific a thing? Who's benefiting by Mike Victorino staying in his position? Who's benefiting by that? Nobody.
Well, not to my way of thinking. I mean, I will say that there are very big money interests, and they are polluting industries.
I see.
Who definitely want to see the interpretation changed of the Clean Water Act. So this is not a new extension of the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act has covered underground flows for 30 years, and there have been landmark cases, and there have been, adjudications based on it. It's just that, in particular, an injection well for Hawaii has not been covered. Injection wells have been covered, but in other states. So this idea that, oh man, this is just this big expansion and we just can't let it happen nationwide, that is the talking point from the mining associations, the fracking and oil associations.
But no one like that is a Hawaii interest. Maybe we could say they have interests here. But
you know what we found in today's kind of all-connected world? That when you have localized issues that could then be of benefit in other regions, money can pile on. I mean, look at some of these election races in Alabama where people are contributing to both candidates from all over the United States because it's considered the clash of the titans, Do the Democrats win or the Republicans win? Do the progressives win or the conservatives win? And this may be one of these things that's quietly being done because what Maui is doing at the Supreme Court, and there were two cases, and Maui's case was chosen. The other case was not chosen. So Maui's case was chosen for whatever reason. Perhaps the implications were broader, but it was the case that was chosen by the court to hear of the two from the circuit court, from the federal appeals court that had conflicting outcomes. So there were three court cases. Two were the same conclusion was reached that the Clean Water Act does cover underground emissions if you can show positively that the effluent reached a federally regulated body like a river or a stream or an ocean. And so if it's just going underground and you can't prove it reaches anything, the Clean Water Act doesn't cover it. So most of the things that the county has said that are just terrible things that could happen, like cesspools and things, they're just not regulated that way. And you'd have to prove a particular cesspool reached a particular place. And then even then, cesspools, the EPA wrote a letter back when Obama was president that made it clear that cesspools are not regulated that way. They're regulated under a different part of the water, clean water federal rules. And so that's kind of just a scare tactic. Mr. Anderson put that to rest. So I think if there are these interest groups, they are doing what we see nationwide, taking information and twisting it and giving half facts and then making it sound so believable and so scary. A lot of people
who are they giving this to? I mean, Mike Victorino has a group of people that are part of our community. I don't think I've heard anyone say that we should continue the lawsuit. And yet
all of his advisors are saying it. The corp counsel is saying it.
So, yeah, but I mean, who are they?
Who is getting to our corp counsel, or why is our corp counsel doing this?
And look,
that is a mystery.
And they're still building. How about the Hilton they're building on South Kihei Road? If they don't have a moat as their front driveway, what is that going on still? We know the roads, all the problems.
Yeah.
So the costs that are going to come.
Redevelopment is,
oh my God,
nuts. In a tsunami zone, in a high-risk zone. It's like we should be retreating from those beaches, not putting more stuff there.
So I wonder, in the long run,
wants to expand and fill in more open space that's there, that's absorbing water. I mean, it's, money sends things in different directions than good planning, quite often. What else can I say?
Well, I think you eloquently said it. I hope that our audience will call Mike Victorino and the group there and let them know, hey, please get on it.
Please let the consul decision move forward. Now, the mayor does not have to order the corp counsel. The corp counsel can act. They work for the consul and the mayor, so they could act. But if for any reason he is like kind of pulling strings on the sideline going, corp counsel, you don't have to act, which is what's being reported in the press, that he's telling them, oh, no, this has to have my approval too. No one can find any legal basis for that. But, of course, by the time it is decided in the courts, it might be too late to pull the court. So
I was in the paper just yesterday.
Stall technique,
But, again, I keep going back to the why. And maybe I just have to park that. But why?
I have no proof that anyone from outside has reached out to anybody on Maui, but let us just say that people on Maui are part of national organizations, and there's the National League of Small Businesses. Perhaps the Small Business League has taken a position on this particular issue at the Supreme Court, and perhaps they've communicated to our local Chamber of Commerce, and perhaps local Chamber of Commerce people have met with the mayor to express their concerns about how much this is going to cost and how much is going to fall on the taxpayer. And, it could be anything. But those are, in essence, smokescreens, because sooner or later you need to deal with the problem anyway.
Right, and if you can do it in a proactive way, as been offered and encouraged by Department of Health, that's like I just don't really understand.
Yeah, I have to say that, for the mayor to say we're putting money in the budget, we want to solve this problem, and not to have the specific, desire to work with the Department of Health after the outreach was made during the consul meeting, which, Corp Consul was there, his staff people were there. They heard what was said. It just seems a little phony to me. Talk is cheap, like drop the suit and get working on the solution, basically.
Well, you have a show coming up when? Tomorrow?
I do. I have a show
with a couple of reporters.
I do.
Well, I hope that you'll somehow bring this issue up. I'm sure you will in some way.
We are actually focusing on another issue, although I'm sure we'll wander about a bit. Yeah, Axel Beers from Maui Time and Susan Hallis from Maui Watch will be on my show tomorrow. And they're both Wailuku residents, and they're really concerned that we're kind of having a whole remaking of Wailuku as part of this new parking structure. They both support there being more parking and being a parking structure, but all the other rezoning and other things that are going along with this, they have been doing like a lot of in-depth research. I have followed it a little bit, but I'm really interested in hearing, what they are finding. That's what my show is about.
Great.
It gives citizens and very knowledgeable people like these reporters a chance to share things that they know with the broader community.
Well, we're going to go to station identification and our sponsors. I'm here with LucienneDeNaie,
hello,
host of Crossroads, woman extraordinaire in so many ways, Lucienne. And we'll then be back in just a little bit. The Neutral Zone with me, Jason Schwartz, would like to sincerely thank David Bryan for his support. David was founder and head of school at New Road School in Santa Monica, California, and is the board chair at the Ojai Foundation and on the board for Brave New Films. The Neutral Zone is heard live Mondays at 11 a.m. here on KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui, and again on Saturdays at 7 a.m., as well as on TV and on MauiNeutralZone.com.
Do you have a nonprofit event coming up that you would like the public to know about? Is there an important social issue for which you'd like to raise awareness? Akaku can help you get the word out. You can come in and record a 1-minute public service announcement for the subject of your choice at no cost to you. Slots are available Mondays and Wednesdays between 1 and 3. Remember, it's free, so call 871-5554 and reserve your spot today.
The 50s, the 60s, the 70s. Hi, this is Steve Summers welcoming you aboard the Oldies Time Machine right here on KAKU. Enjoy special features like the Diner Tune, the Motown Memory, the Doo-Wopper, and the Elvis Moment. Come on! Spend an hour inside the Oldies Time Machine, Sunday mornings at 1 and 10 a.m. right here on the voice of Maui, KAKU.
I want to thank my mommy for loving me so much,
for taking me to the doctor when I broke my foot, for leaving me alone when I wanted to be alone.
And now, as a grown-up, I'm thankful for being able to take care of you, my dear mom, for taking you to your therapies, for understanding that sometimes you simply want to be alone.
Roles change without us noticing. That's why AARP gives you the information to provide even better care for your loved one. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Do you have something to say but can't find an outlet? Did you know that Akaku offers a service called Open Mic? Here, you can come in and make a statement on any topic you want, and it's free. Play a song you wrote, recite a monologue, do a funny dance, comment on a recent event. The floor is yours. Come speak your mind for free. Appointments are available Mondays and Wednesdays between 1 and 3. Call 871-5554 today to reserve your spot.
Hi there, we are back. I'm here with LucienneDeNaie. I'm Jason Schwartz on the Neutral Zone, MauiNeutralZone.com. You can find all these shows later. And you can also find them on Facebook Live now. You can find them on YouTube. You can find them everywhere in a store near you. But truth is, Lucienne is so knowledgeable on the subject. I was saying, we mentioned it to these reporters about this injection wells. You've got another issue coming up with them about the Wailuku deal. We have so much stuff going on now. I guess the council is doing exactly what you said. Kelly King and others there are leading a charge toward making significant changes and improvements that have been too long in the waiting, I think.
I agree. It's a breath of fresh air. And it's not like we haven't had good people on the console before.
Sure.
We've had some people that did a lot of good. In fact, it was very sad to see that Danny Mateo passed away.
Oh, yes.
I worked with him very closely on a number of issues. And what a fun guy. I mean, he kept his sense of humor. He was a very directed guy. He got stuff done, but he kept his sense of humor throughout some pretty tense things.
And he was there with Pat Kawano before that, so he's been involved in things for so long.
Yeah, he was Pat's aide, and I met with him when he was Pat's aide, and then when he was the council member, and he, and I got to know him off hours too, because I ran for office several times, and all the candidates travel around together to different community events, community forums. You have a lot of time to spend just meeting people's family, chatting, and Danny was an outstanding person. I'm going to miss seeing him at the next election because he was there. I
understand. At the clerks,
3 or 4 elections, and just hands-on presence. And anyway, too young.
Yeah, too young. Blessings to him and also the family. With so many issues and things to go, I'm trying to think, okay, what if I was sitting on a show with LucienneDeNaie, what would be the most important things I'd want to talk about? We talked about water. I got my little plug into the fact that we can get water from the air, and there should be no issue about water. There should be a lot more looking at that and putting them into 30-year mortgages and communities developed in different ways, things that are way outside of what's going on now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's now. That's what gets you. It's like, okay, if these things are available now, why are we waiting to know about them?
Well, I think there's a kind of a lack of information connection. And a lot of times you see that communities that actually have really good solutions to things have reached that point by bringing together those with the pieces and then setting a direction and taking that direction. And then you see solutions emerge from that. But if one person knows about this and the others don't, and then everyone else thinks we should, we have to go in this other direction, it's like it just takes so much longer to understand that we have choices. I mean, I've dedicated my life to doing research so that we have choices about things. It's not always that maybe the things that I think are best are going to be the choices that people make, but at least people should know that there are choices, that it's not poorly planned growth is not inevitable. It's not just like, well, that's what happens. Exploitation of resources without thinking that there's a tomorrow is not inevitable. There's other ways to manage our resources that are being done all over the world, not just in the U.S. We just need to look at the full range of choices. And this information you bring up is like, part of a field of choices that people might have. But we need to know more.
Well, and the good thing is both you and I we're here with media trying to get some of these ideas out.
True. Yeah, and, social engineering. It's solved more problems than a lot of other things. Just putting together an idea with a group of people that could actually take the idea and make it work.
Speaking of good people, just on our break here, Lucienne let me know that she was going to be, I want to say, immortalized. Is that the right choice of words?
Well, it depends how long that sidewalk lasts out there.
Outside here at Akaku Community Media and KAKU radio studios, we have, I sort of like a mini Grauman's Chinese theater.
Yes.
With people that have contributed to our island at the decision of whoever the powers they be. But we have a sidewalk of fame outside.
It's called the Walk of Honor or something.
Walk of Honor.
Yeah.
And you're going to be one of the inductees, I guess, whatever, into this cement future.
I was completely surprised to find out about 2 weeks ago. I got a nice letter from Akaku saying that myself, Hannah Bernard, who's a close friend and
wonderful lady,
wonderful community activist and advocate for our oceans and our people, and Keali'i Raichel, who of course is a a legendary and iconic performer here, and a person who gives a great deal to the community.
And has his halau and been doing hula and really big for a long time.
Of course, he does a lot of outreach on cultural issues and other things too, and just helps people. He's a person who shares his gifts. And then Felipe Aki from over in Molokai, who's a longtime cultural practitioner, teacher, mentor, kupuna over there.
And this event is when? November?
It's the 9th, Saturday the 9th.
9th of November. Come on down.
They have a big party down here. It's I think it's kind of in the afternoon. I think they do it well, it depends how fast the cement sets up.
I was going to say, we got to set the cement and then...
You often have they have to keep people talking for a while because the cement isn't ready. It's too runny to put your feet in. I've attended virtually all of these ceremonies because I know many people who've been honored in the past. And this, really, it's a very unbelievable honor to be at.
Well, and as public, I think it is truly earned honor. You've been just such an incredible part of our community. Thank you for all that you've been doing.
I guess that's going to remain, and everyone's going to know my shoe size now.
Oh, that's right.
Size 11 feet cannot be beat.
That's very funny. How are things going with, in your opinion? And again, I'm just pulling from the air. Housing. Have you seen any solutions that we're going to adopt that are going to handle this incredible need for housing? Affordable housing, I'm keeping that as a separate issue. But what are we going to do here?
Well, the fact is that Maui has always had a lot of building going on, but the building is usually motivated by the higher-end market because we have a reputation of this amazing place where you can retire and live, by the ocean or looking at the ocean. And, I have many, many dear friends here who've come here in the last 30 years to retire. Maybe they bought a little condo 20 years ago and finally can retire. And they contribute to the community. They volunteer to help at the churches. They volunteer to help for, community restoration projects. They volunteer to help in community service situations. However, and they deserve to have housing here, but we have not had the formula that creates housing in enough demand or enough supply for the average person who lives here, who basically it has to be affordable, quote-unquote, housing because the average wage here is not very high.
No, it isn't.
You're aware of.
Oh, it always amazes me when I see the average income for a household, and I translate. And I was in the mortgage business. You translate it into what you would qualify for.
Yeah.
It's just extraordinary to then hear the rules of what affordable housing is from FHA and the loans, and we are just in crazy crisis here. Do you think? In my opinion, I think that we could do just this thing about the water that I mentioned about, to be able to not take large swaths that might still stay in ag and in other uses and use land that wasn't even in the dreams of people building until we could have our own power and water. I think we could build things. This guy was talking about $60,000 for a home.
Oh, to have your own water supply?
No, the whole house, everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Huh? So when I hear those things and I hear nobody knows about it, he just moved here and they're opening a water company called Kalani Water. That when you're done with your water that comes from the air, you can put the bottle back in the machine and they grind it up to make new bottles here locally.
Wow.
And they give you the refund and use it to the new water coming out.
Well, when you think about housing solutions, because it's more than just having water or power. It's, where do the kids go to school? How far do you have to go to the library, the supermarket, the this or that? So it does make sense. If you spend time in Europe, which I've spent a lot of time in Europe, you see how people, after hundreds and hundreds of years, have kind of found a rhythm, They develop areas, pretty tight clusters, and then they have more countryside in between, and then another tight cluster. And that seems to be kind of a quality of life indicator that, where people can have enough places to live, but also not just build everything into concrete.
Would it be fair to say that in Europe there aren't any of these massive developers that build 1,000 of the same thing?
No, there are some.
Do they do it with sense? I mean, I was kind of wondering, like what you were speaking about.
There are some massive developers. There's a lot more involvement with government in Europe. I've spent quite a bit of time in Sweden.
I see.
And Sweden is known as, quote unquote, a socialistic country. But what it means is that government gets involved in things. And for instance, Sweden, during World War II, did not have any kind of public transportation system except some, old buses. After World War II, they decided that they were going to create a subway system in Stockholm, which is 14 islands. They did, and it's excellent. And it goes all the way up and down, the Swedish, because it was decided, it was a goal. There was a plan made. It was done. It's
not like our plans that are 30 years old?
Yeah, very inexpensive to ride, but it's subsidized. It's subsidized. People pay higher value-added taxes, and they get services. And, some people are disgruntled about it, but a lot of people just, the system works. So we don't have to go all the way to a socialistic system, but I think like one of the next big ideas that needs to happen, and I know Vince Begoyo, who I don't always agree with on everything, but he's a former director of Housing and Human Services, former county council member, and has built affordable housing. He said the county needs to secure, while we have these big land companies that are just getting rid of land, a couple thousand acres in a good location, and over time contract with people who want to build an affordable product, get them financing so that they can sell it at an affordable rate, and provide some basic infrastructure so that those costs are amortized just not by one developer, but by the whole public sector. And that way you would have, an area that could have housing that would be affordable for a range, but affordable for people who work here. And if we just leave everything to the private sector, there are some really good people in the private sector. I serve on boards with several of them, people who want to get this job done and are working on projects and are delivering projects. But your average large developer will say anything, and then it changes, 5 years down the road. I just attended a hearing at the Land Use Commission, Pulelehua. I remember when 60% of it was going to be affordable. That's what Mr. Ryan Churchill, on behalf of Maui Land and Pine, told the Planning Commission, told the Land Use Commission. And I testified that, they needed to put this in concrete. They did. And now it's been sold. And the new developer's coming back in and says, you know what, it's going to be 25% affordable because that's what the county requires now, so we don't have to do any more. This is supposed to be providing affordable housing for 2 large developments, and it's crazy. And they're probably going to get it because everyone's going, oh, puting, they can't afford to build affordable housing. I mean, I just say, find the people who know how to build this and make it pencil out. Find out what the blockages are. The blockages are the financing. Get lower cost financing. The county has millions that they put in banks. Invest it somewhere where they'll give low interest loans for part of the corpus for affordable housing. Put our money where our mouth is.
Isn't it also true that the private people, I'll use A and B as a simple name, they have land, they have land.
Land that's free to them.
Oh, land, and that has a value.
Yeah.
And if you were going to a bank, that land has a value. And so it could all be, they could be partners in everything going on, and with just some finance, I don't want to even say tricks, just in the financing world, this financing could happen. And you wouldn't even have to ask the county.
Well, I had Vince Begoyo on my show last year, or a couple of times I've had him on the show, along with Stan Franco and Mike Foley. I've had, planning directors. I've had Stan Franco, who set up the first homeless shelter and affordable housing programs for the county back 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And Vince Begoyo, who has tremendous experience in affordable housing. And what Vince said is that 30, 40 years ago, we had mayors who had the will to create housing for Maui's people.
Yes.
And they went to large landowners and they said, C. Brewer, A&B, Maui Land and Pine, you all have resort projects in mind or development projects in mind. That's fine. I'm happy to support those. I need 100 acres each from you for housing for our people. We need to know our people are getting something from this. And they all gave the land. And all this housing was built. The only problem was it only had to remain affordable for 10 years. And there's this tug of war where people, your house is the main way, investing in a home is the main way that
people get wealth.
Yeah. But if it's subsidized, there needs to be kind of a different model. You gain something from it, but of course you didn't have to pay full price from it. So what you gain from it is not the same as the sky's the limit. You can, you got it at $130,000 and you can now sell it for $500,000. That doesn't work for the public good. It may work for your family, but it doesn't work for the public good. So if you have subsidized housing after 10 years and you want to sell it, it needs to sell at an increment above what, the price was you paid for it, not at the full market value, because otherwise you can build and build and build.
And we never solve the problem.
And we'll never solve the problem because it will always be more profitable to sell it at the inflated market rates.
Well, I hope we'll see some of the things that you're talking about happening. I'm going to probably put this guy in touch with you to get him on.
Yeah, it'd be great to talk with him.
Because I keep hearing about, I don't know, maybe because I've been out there doing things with in the medical field and was looking at hydrogen. We got a little time left, about 10 minutes. And just came upon this gentleman. He was up there at Vince Mina and the Hawaii Farmers had him.
Really?
He was up there, and I saw it. And I also saw it in Hawaiian Homelands. There was a demonstration they set up, and they're going to be trying to do a project up there also.
What you need are these pilot projects, what you call proof of concept. It's when people see it can be done, then the next question is, okay, could it be done on a larger scale? If it works for like one house, could it work for a whole subdivision? Would there be any constraints to if every house did it? Would it still work out? So these are good questions.
I always used to like the excuse the electric company gave me. I don't know why this came to mind when they said, well, we have to have customers. You can't keep taking people off the grid.
Yeah.
People will be independent of the grid. Well, I keep thinking that's at this point in our island, being off the grid is like the thing to do. It would help keep the systems that are there functioning. I don't think we need more money. We change the way who's in charge. And I don't know. Maybe I'm going off the subject. Stop me if I will. But
energy is another very important subject. I mean, it's like the energy rates here are the highest in the nation. So we should be talking about it. And, of course, we have abundant, natural resources for energy. I think that what I remember Hunter Lovins saying from Rocky Mountain Institute a number of years ago is that the most far-sighted electrical grid systems are planning a transition from electrical providers to electrical managers. They will be providing a grid to help distribute energy that is produced more in separate regions rather than only at one consolidated treatment plant, or not treatment plant, generating plant.
Right. And I imagine they could also be the financing for renewable energy for homes and businesses where
they could be energy banks.
They could be the ones.
And energy managers.
I always say on an island, you don't want to destroy your utility company. You want to strengthen them, I would think.
Well, I think you want everyone to have the right role. And, roles do change. We can all remember back, like when we were kids, there was, certain things that we just expected to be done a certain way. There were 3 TV stations, and if it wasn't on one of those 3 TV stations, it wasn't on. Well, that's not the world anymore.
It sure isn't.
We have different worlds now,
information overload. I keep wondering when kids are growing up and there's just so many ways for them to look. Who's making the decision on pointing where they're looking, and how the young kids seem to be sharp, though. I'll tell you, I wonder.
I work with a lot of young conservation-minded people on different boards and different organizations, and they have an intuitive way of navigating these kinds of things. And I think it's, they were born in the digital age, and just like if you were born in a sailing community, you'd know a lot about currents and winds and things, where someone else just comes in and it's just like nothing they can read. Well, our digital natives, I think, can read those currents, and it's like they're very good navigators,
And like that little girl said at the UN, "What are you doing leaving us no planet? You guys should be ashamed of yourself."
You're speaking the truth, and it's resonating.
It is, sure.
And, when older people say it has meaning. They're speaking about their children or grandchildren. But I think when the generation that's going to have to live with these decisions starts speaking out, it's what changes things. I mean, I grew up during the Vietnam War era, which you probably did too.
Yeah.
And our generation just said, we're being sent to fight and die. We don't think this is such a great idea. And, it started shifting things. But it took time, but it did start shifting.
And we're in a very important, I guess you'd say, pivotal time nationwide with our leadership.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, leadership, I mean, it's like, are we going to believe lies or, spin, or are people going to dig down and get the truth? And I don't think it's confined to either party. I think both parties are willing to spin things, or, not just even two parties. I think many different political institutions are willing to spin things for their own, advantage. But it's time to look at what really works for everybody, and not just what works for the few or what works for those who are pulling the strings of power, or can get to the hearings and get to the meetings. I just went to a large Sierra Club conference, and the watchword is equity. The environmental movement is over 100 years old in this nation, and other places as well. And it's just time that all the different campaigns for social justice and equality of gender and equality of opportunity join together, because they're really all concerned about the same thing. It's like the people who don't have clean air and clean water are people that also are having problems probably getting their vote to count. They're being pushed around perhaps by their local authorities and being given water or air to breathe that's substandard because, they don't have any power to push back. So it's time to stand together.
Well, and then take your feet out of the cement. So I know that we'll make sure that the cement isn't too soft and grab your feet, because you've been such a leader for so long. It is truly a really beautiful honor and something you really deserve. And you're still kicking. You're still cooking. You have shows coming up. Very interesting shows coming up. We do too. But then, this is very fun. This is a new age, and hopefully more and more people are recognizing that it's time to stand up and be part of this thing, and not just be passive and sit back and think someone else is going to say it or do it. It's us. It's
true. If people don't have a lot of time to read things or go to hearings, at least they can shoot off an email or post something on Facebook and just show solidarity. And there's a lot of that happening now. It's just a beautiful thing to see all the people who've come together to protect Mauna Kea, to stand for important things in our communities. So it is a time of people unifying, hooeying up, and standing together and supporting one another, which is the most human of traits, is to care and support for one another.
Well, if you'll run for mayor, I'll vote for you.
Well, I'm going to be happy to help other people run for mayor. I think there's some excellent people that can run for mayor.
You would be a great support staff. I understand.
Yes, I will be there supporting. I'm in the Kapuna years now. I'm past the 70 mark, so I think it's
you wear it well.
It's good to let the younger people take the leadership roles, and we can definitely provide the advice and what do they call it? The institutional knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we've got about a minute and a half left. If you had a minute and a half left, what things do you want to be sure you share with our audience? You have your own platform, but I mean, as we're sitting here, anything that just jumps out as important you'd like to share?
Well, I just want to say to people who are listening that you are important. You know, you as a citizen, as a resident, as a kama'aina here of Maui, as a person who loves this place, whether you were born here or you came here, you are important and you count. And don't despair that we're going to hell in a handbasket and no one can do anything about it. There's some great people in the county council. There's some great people in the legislature. There's some great people even nationwide who have your back. And we hope to see the results of things as they unfold. So don't give up hope.
And we'd love to see you start carrying the torch and being part of what we're doing and being part of it because you're our future leaders. In fact, you know, we're, like you said, advisor roles are appropriate at this place in what we're doing. But I think the young need to feel involved and feel like someone's going to give them some, opportunity to move into
Absolutely. The young people definitely should be the voice that is out there. It's making a difference nationwide. And I love this T-shirt I have. It says, nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something.
Well, thank you all for joining us. We are here, and we are so thrilled to be with you with the Neutral Zone with LucienneDeNaie. I'm Jason Schwartz. We will see you next week on the Neutral Zone. Thank you, Lucienne. Watch Lucienne's show and listen tomorrow, Crossroads.
Aloha.
Aloha.